The sight of Clara Boyd stepping off the stagecoach in Wallace, Idaho on that scorching June afternoon in 1878 stopped every ranch hand in their tracks, but none felt the impact quite like Cole Brennan. He had been carrying 2 heavy sacks of grain across the dusty yard of the Silver Creek Ranch when his eyes landed on her, and suddenly, those sacks might as well have been filled with feathers for all he could feel them. She wore a deep blue traveling dress that seemed impossibly clean despite the long journey. Her dark hair swept up beneath a bonnet that framed a face so lovely it made his chest ache. Cole knew exactly who she was. Everyone on the ranch knew Thomas Boyd had a younger sister back east finishing her education, but no one had mentioned she would be arriving today, and certainly no one had mentioned she looked like something out of a dream. "Get your eyes back in your head, Brennan," muttered Jack, one of the other ranch hands who had stopped mid-stride beside him. "That is the boss's sister, and she is so far out of your league you might as well be looking at the moon." Cole tore his gaze away and hefted the grain sacks again, feeling heat rise in his cheeks that had nothing to do with the summer sun. Jack was right, of course. Cole was just a ranch hand, had been working at Silver Creek for 3 years now, ever since he was 20 years old. He had nothing to his name but his horse, his saddle, a few changes of clothes, and whatever wages he managed not to spend in town on Saturday nights. Thomas Boyd, on the other hand, owned one of the most prosperous cattle ranches in northern Idaho, and his sister had just spent 4 years at some fancy finishing school in Boston. They inhabited different worlds entirely. Still, as Cole watched Thomas rush forward to embrace his sister, lifting her clear off the ground and spinning her around while she laughed with pure joy, something stubborn and determined settled in his chest. He had never been one to back down from a challenge, whether it was breaking a wild horse or tracking cattle rustlers through the mountains. If Clara Boyd was out of his league, well then, he would just have to prove he belonged in it. "Cole, stop standing there like a statue and help unload Miss Boyd's trunks," called out Samuel, the ranch foreman, snapping Cole back to attention. Cole quickly deposited the grain sacks and jogged over to the stagecoach, where the driver was already hauling down several large trunks from the roof. As he reached up to take one, he found himself suddenly face to face with Clara Boyd, who had walked over to ensure her belongings were handled carefully. "Careful with that one, please," she said, her voice carrying a refined Eastern accent but with an underlying warmth that surprised him. "It has books in it." "Yes, madam," Cole managed, his throat suddenly dry. Up close, she was even more striking, with clear gray eyes that seemed to assess everything around her with intelligence and curiosity. "I will be real careful with all of them." She smiled then, a genuine smile that reached her eyes. "Thank you, Mr. Brennan, madam, Cole Brennan. Thank you, Mr. Brennan, I appreciate your help." Thomas appeared at her elbow, placing a protective hand on her shoulder. "Clara, you must be exhausted. Let the men handle your things. I have had your old room prepared, and cook has made your favorite supper." As Thomas guided his sister toward the large ranch house, Cole couldn't help but watch them go, already feeling the weight of the distance between them. The ranch house sat on a small rise, a sprawling 2-story structure painted white with green shutters and a wide porch that wrapped around 3 sides. It was a far cry from the bunkhouse where Cole and the other ranch hands slept, a simple building with rows of narrow beds and hooks on the wall for their few possessions. "You are staring again," Jack said with a laugh, slapping Cole on the shoulder. "Come on, let us get these trunks to the house before Samuel has our hides." The rest of that day passed in a blur of routine work, but Cole found his thoughts constantly drifting back to Clara Boyd. That evening, as he sat with the other ranch hands eating beef stew and cornbread in the bunkhouse, the conversation naturally turned to the boss's sister. "Heard she has been in Boston for 4 years," said Pete, an older cowboy with graying hair. "Thomas sent her there right after their parents died. She was just a girl then, maybe 14 or 15. "She is all grown up now," Jack said with a whistle. "Did you see that dress? Must have cost more than we make in 6 months." "She is pretty enough, I will give her that," added Mike, another hand. "But a woman like that has no place on a working ranch. She will be bored inside a week and begging to go back east." Cole found himself bristling at that assessment. Maybe she wanted to come home. This is her home, after all. She grew up here. The other men looked at him with varying degrees of amusement. "Well, well," Pete said with a grin, "someone is smitten." "I am just saying she might have missed it here," Cole protested, knowing his face was turning red again. "You all act like she is some delicate flower who cannot handle ranch life." "Can she?" Jack challenged. "Have you ever seen a finishing school girl mucking out stables or dealing with branding day?" Cole had no answer to that, but something in the way Clara had looked at the ranch, the way her eyes had swept across the familiar landscape with what seemed like longing, made him think she was tougher than they gave her credit for. He did not see much of Clara over the next few days. She remained largely in the house, presumably recovering from her journey and reacquainting herself with her home. Cole went about his work, riding out with the other hands to check on the cattle grazing in the high pastures, mending fences, and breaking a couple of young horses that Thomas had recently acquired. The work was hard and the hours long, but Cole had never minded that. There was something satisfying about physical labor, about seeing tangible results from your efforts. It was nearly a week after Clara's arrival when Cole next encountered her properly. He had been sent back to the ranch yard early to help repair a broken wagon wheel when he heard the commotion from the main barn. Raised voices, one of them decidedly feminine and frustrated, drew him like a magnet. Inside the barn, he found Clara Boyd in a simple cotton dress and riding boots, facing down Timothy, the stable hand, with her hands on her hips. Between them stood a tall chestnut mare with a white blaze down her face, already saddled. "I have been riding since I was 5 years old, Timothy. I do not need an escort to ride around my own property," Clara was saying, her refined accent slipping slightly with her irritation. "Miss Boyd, your brother gave strict instructions that you was not to ride out alone," Timothy replied nervously, clearly uncomfortable contradicting the boss's sister. "He said if you wanted to ride, someone had to accompany you. My brother forgets I am not a child anymore. I am perfectly capable of taking care of myself." Cole cleared his throat, announcing his presence. Both of them turned to look at him. "Begging your pardon, Miss Boyd, but your brother has good reason for concern. We have had some trouble with drifters lately, and there have been reports of a mountain lion in the hills. It is not safe for anyone to ride out alone, man or woman." Clara's gray eyes fixed on him with an intensity that made his heart skip. "Then perhaps, Mr. Brennan, you would be willing to serve as my escort. I am sure you have work to do, but I have been cooped up in that house for nearly a week, and if I do not get some fresh air and exercise soon, I shall go mad." Cole glanced at Timothy, who looked relieved to have the responsibility shifted to someone else. "I suppose I could spare an hour or so. I need to check on the south fence line anyway, if you would not mind riding that direction." A brilliant smile spread across Clara's face. "I would not mind in the matter. Give me just a moment to let Thomas know I am going out and I shall meet you back here." She swept past him, leaving a faint scent of lavender in her wake. Timothy let out a long breath. "Rather you than me, friend. The boss is not going to be happy about this." She is just going for a ride, not heading into battle, Cole said, though he felt a flutter of nervousness about what Thomas might say. Still, it seemed cruel to keep Clara trapped in the house, and at least this way she would be properly supervised. Cole quickly saddled his own horse, a reliable buckskin gelding named Scout, and was leading him out of the barn when Clara returned, slightly breathless. Thomas says it is fine as long as I am back before supper. He also said to tell you that if anything happens to me, he will personally see to it that you regret being born. Cole felt his stomach drop. He actually said that, Clara laughed, a light musical sound. Not in so many words, but the sentiment was clear. Do not worry, Mr. Brennan. I shall tell him you were the perfect gentleman and guardian if he interrogates me later. They mounted up and rode out of the ranch yard at an easy trot. The day was warm but not oppressively hot, with a slight breeze carrying the scent of pine from the surrounding mountains. Wallace sat in a valley surrounded by forested hills, and the Silver Creek Ranch sprawled across some of the best grazing land in the region. As they rode, Cole found himself hyper-aware of Clara beside him, the way she sat her horse with practiced ease, the way the sunlight caught the dark strands of hair that had escaped from her braid. You ride well, he ventured after they had been moving in silence for several minutes. Thank you. My father taught me. He said that anyone living on a ranch needed to know how to handle a horse properly, daughter or not. There was a wistfulness in her voice. I have missed this. Boston is a fine city, but there is something about this landscape that gets into your blood. Your brother said you were away at school. Did you enjoy it? Clara was quiet for a moment, guiding her mare around a cluster of rocks. Parts of it. I learned a great deal and I made some good friends, but I always knew I would come home eventually. This is where I belong. They reached the fence line Cole needed to inspect, and he dismounted to examine a section that had been reported as loose. Clara swung down from her own horse with surprising agility and came to stand beside him as he tested the tension of the wire. What exactly does a ranch hand do? She asked, genuine curiosity in her voice. I know you work with the cattle and horses, but what does that entail day to day? Cole straightened up, pleased to find the fence was actually secure enough. It depends on the season. Spring is calving time, which means long nights checking on the herd, helping with difficult births, branding the new calves. Summer is about moving cattle to better grazing, maintaining the ranch, breaking horses. Fall is roundup and bringing the herd down from the high country before winter. Winter is mostly about survival, keeping animals fed and sheltered, breaking ice in water troughs, that sort of thing. It sounds like hard work. It is, but it is good work, honest work, he caught himself. Not that other work is not honest, I just mean. Clara smiled. I know what you mean. There is something satisfying about it, is there not? About working with your hands and seeing direct results. They remounted and continued riding, following a narrow trail that wound along a creek lined with cottonwood trees. Cole found himself relaxing, enjoying Clara's company more than he had anticipated. She asked intelligent questions about the ranch, about the cattle, about the challenges they faced. She was not at all the pampered Eastern lady he had half expected. Can I ask you something, Mr. Brennan? Clara said after a while, of course. And please just call me Cole. Mr. Brennan makes me feel like you are talking to my father. All right, Cole. Why did you become a ranch hand? Do you hope to own your own spread someday, or do you prefer working for someone else? It was a more personal question than he had expected, but her tone was kind, not prying. I grew up on a small farm in Kansas. My parents died when I was 17. Fever took them both within a week of each other. Had to sell the farm to pay their debts. I drifted for a while, worked odd jobs, until I made my way up here and your brother gave me a chance. As for owning my own place, well, that is the dream. But land is not cheap, and saving on a cowboy's wages takes time. I am sorry about your parents. I know what it is like to lose them. Thank you. And I am sorry for your loss as well. They rode in comfortable silence for a bit, and Cole marveled at how easy it was to talk to her. He had expected awkwardness, that gulf of class and education creating an unbridgeable gap, but Clara seemed genuinely interested in his life and experiences. There, Clara said suddenly, pointing toward a meadow carpeted with wildflowers. Can we ride through there? I had forgotten how beautiful it is in summer. Cole nodded, and they turned their horses off the trail, letting them pick their way through the colorful blooms. Clara's face was radiant, and Cole found himself unable to look away. She caught him staring and blushed slightly. I must seem foolish getting so excited over flowers, she said. Not at all. It is nice to see someone appreciate it. Most people who work out here stop noticing after a while. That would be a shame. One should never stop noticing beauty. Her words hung in the air between them, weighted with something neither of them acknowledged directly. Cole felt his heart hammering in his chest. He wanted to say something meaningful, something that would let her know what he was feeling, but the words tangled in his throat. Instead, he simply said, "We should probably head back. Do not want to worry your brother." The ride back to the ranch was quieter, but not uncomfortably so. When they reached the barn and dismounted, Clara turned to him with a warm smile. "Thank you, Cole. I enjoyed this very much. Perhaps we could ride again sometime." "I would like that," Cole said, then quickly added, "I mean if your brother approves, of course. My brother does not control every aspect of my life, though he sometimes seems to think he does. I shall see you at supper, perhaps." Thomas mentioned he might invite some of the senior ranch hands to eat with us tonight. Cole's surprise must have shown on his face because Clara laughed. "Did he not tell you? He likes to have the foreman and a few others join us occasionally. Says it is good for morale and helps him keep in touch with how things are going on the ranch." Sure enough, that evening Samuel came through the bunkhouse and tapped Cole, along with Pete and 2 other senior hands, to clean up and present themselves at the main house for dinner. Cole washed as best he could with cold water from the pump, changed into his only good shirt, and tried to tame his sandy brown hair with wet hands. Jack whistled at him as he headed out. "Look at you, all dressed up. Try not to make a fool of yourself in front of the fancy folk." Cole threw a wadded-up shirt at him and left to Jack's laughter. The interior of the ranch house was even more impressive than Cole had imagined. The front door opened into a wide hallway with polished wood floors and walls decorated with paintings and photographs. Samuel led them into a spacious dining room where a long table was set with fine china and silver candlesticks. Thomas sat at the head of the table, and Clara sat to his right, now dressed in a deep green gown that made her eyes look even more striking. "Gentlemen, welcome," Thomas said, gesturing to the empty chairs. "Please sit. Clara has been after me to make these dinners a more regular occurrence, and I have to admit she is right. We all work together. We should break bread together occasionally." The meal was delicious, far better than the usual bunkhouse fare. There was roast beef, potatoes with gravy, fresh bread, green beans, and apple pie for dessert. The conversation flowed easily, with Thomas asking about various aspects of the ranch work and the men responding with reports and observations. Cole was impressed by how much Clara participated, asking questions that showed she understood the business side of ranching as well as anyone. "Cole took me riding this afternoon," Clara said at one point. "He showed me the south pastures. The cattle are looking very healthy." Thomas looked between them, his expression unreadable. That was kind of him, I hope he was not pulled away from more pressing duties." "Not at all, sir," Cole said quickly. "I needed to check that fence line anyway, and Miss Boyd is an excellent rider. No trouble at all. Still, I would prefer you not make a habit of it. Clara, if you wish to ride, I can arrange for someone whose primary job is not managing our livestock." Cole saw Clara's jaw tighten slightly, but she simply said, "Of course, Thomas. Whatever you think best." The rest of the meal passed without incident, but Cole could feel the tension. After they were dismissed and walking back to the bunkhouse, Pete sidled up next to him. "Word of advice, son. Thomas Boyd is a fair boss and a good man, but he is fierce protective of his sister. You would do well to remember she is off limits. We just went riding, Pete. That is all. Maybe so, but I saw the way you looked at her during dinner, and I saw the way she looked back. Just be careful. I would hate to see you lose a good job over something that cannot go anywhere." Cole lay awake long that night, Pete's words echoing in his mind. The older man was right, of course. Getting involved with the boss's sister was a recipe for disaster. But he could not shake the memory of Clara's smile, the sound of her laugh, the way she had genuinely seemed to enjoy his company. For the first time in his life, Cole felt like he had met someone who truly saw him, not just as a hired hand but as a person worth knowing. Over the next few weeks, Cole tried to maintain a respectful distance, but circumstances seemed determined to throw them together. Clara had taken an active interest in the ranch's operations, and she frequently came out to observe the work, asking questions and taking notes in a small leather journal she carried. Thomas seemed pleased by her interest, interpreting it as her learning to manage the property she would presumably inherit someday. Cole found himself volunteering for any task that might bring him near where Clara was. When she came to watch the horse breaking, he made sure to demonstrate his skills, staying calm and patient with even the most spirited animals. When she asked to see the cattle operation, he was the one to explain the process of moving the herd to fresh grazing. And somehow, despite Thomas's earlier reservations, Cole became her unofficial escort on her increasingly frequent rides. It was during one of these rides, about a month after her arrival, that things shifted between them. They had ridden further than usual, up into the foothills where the pine trees grew thick and the air smelled of resin and earth. They dismounted near a small waterfall to let the horses drink, and Clara sat down on a flat rock near the water's edge. "Can I tell you something?" she said, looking out at the cascading water rather than at him. Cole sat down a respectful distance away. "Of course. I did not want to go to Boston. When my parents died, I begged Thomas to let me stay here, but he insisted I needed proper education and refinement. He said it was what our mother would have wanted." She turned to look at him then, and he saw sadness in her eyes. "He sent me away because he did not know what to do with a grieving 14-year-old girl, and now that I am back, he still does not quite know what to do with me. He treats me like a guest in my own home. Have you told him how you feel?" "I've tried, but Thomas has always been stubborn. He thinks he knows what is best for everyone." She picked up a small stone and tossed it into the pool at the base of the waterfall. "The truth is, I came back not just because this is my home, but because I want to be part of running the ranch. I learned business and accounting in Boston, things that could be useful here. But Thomas just pats me on the head and tells me not to worry about such matters." Cole felt a surge of anger on her behalf. "That is not right. You are clearly intelligent and capable. Your brother should listen to you." Clara smiled at him, a real smile that lit up her whole face. "Thank you for saying that. You have no idea how good it feels to have someone take me seriously." She hesitated, then added softly, "You take me seriously, Cole. You always have from that very first day. You do not treat me like a delicate flower or a burden. You treat me like a person. That is because you are a person, Cole said, then felt foolish for stating the obvious. What I mean is, you deserve respect and consideration just like anyone else. You being educated and refined does not make you less capable of understanding ranch life. If anything, it probably gives you a better perspective. They sat in comfortable silence for a while, listening to the rush of the waterfall and the birdsong in the trees. Cole was acutely aware of how close they were sitting, how easy it would be to reach out and take her hand. But he held back, knowing that crossing that line would change everything. "Cole," Clara said quietly, "I need to ask you something, and I want you to be honest with me. All right. You think someone like me, someone who was raised here but sent away and educated back east, do you think I can ever truly fit back into this life? Or will I always be caught between two worlds, not quite belonging to either?" Cole turned to look at her fully, struck by the vulnerability in her question. "I think you already belong here. I see it in the way you ride, the way you talk about the land, the way your face lights up when you are outside under the sky. That Eastern education did not change who you are at your core. It just added to it, made you more than you were before. Anyone who cannot see that is a fool." Clara's eyes glistened with unshed tears. "You really believe that?" "I do." She reached out then and took his hand, a simple gesture that sent electricity through his entire body. "Thank you," she whispered. "You have no idea how much I needed to hear that." They sat there, hands clasped, for a long moment before Clara gently pulled away, seeming to remember herself. "We should probably head back. I do not want to give Thomas another reason to forbid these rides. Has he said something?" "Not directly, but I have noticed he is always asking where I have been and who I was with. He is protective, which I understand, but it is suffocating sometimes." As they rode back to the ranch, Cole's mind was racing. Clara had held his hand. It was a small thing, perhaps meaningless, but it had felt significant. He knew he was playing with fire, that letting himself care for her would only lead to heartbreak, but he could not seem to stop himself. She was like gravity, pulling him inexorably closer. That evening, as Cole was grooming Scout before turning in for the night, Thomas appeared in the barn. Cole straightened up, immediately on alert. The ranch owner rarely came to the barn at this hour unless something was wrong. "Brennan, I need to speak with you," Thomas said, his tone serious but not angry. "Yes, sir. Is there a problem?" Thomas leaned against a support post, studying Cole with an expression that was hard to read. "You have been spending a lot of time with my sister lately." Cole felt his pulse quicken. "She likes to ride, sir, and you wanted someone to accompany her. I have just been trying to help." "I know, and I appreciate that. Clara speaks highly of you. She says you are patient and respectful, and that you actually listen when she talks." Thomas paused, seeming to choose his words carefully. "The thing is, Cole, I see the way you look at her, and I have started to notice the way she looks at you." Cole's mouth went dry. "Sir, I have not done anything inappropriate. I have been nothing but respectful." "I know that. If I thought otherwise, we would be having a very different conversation." Thomas sighed and ran a hand through his hair, looking suddenly tired. "Look, you are a good man, Brennan. You work hard, you are honest, and the other men respect you, but Clara is my only sister. She is all the family I have left. Our parents trusted me to look after her, to make sure she was provided for and protected." "I understand, sir." "Do you? Because here is the thing. Clara has been back for 6 weeks, and in that time you have become important to her. I can tell. She is happier when she has been with you, more animated, more like her old self, and that terrifies me." Cole was not sure what to say to that. Thomas continued, "You are a ranch hand, Cole. A good one, but still, you live in the bunkhouse and draw wages. Clara, whether she likes it or not, will eventually inherit half of this ranch. She needs to marry someone who can help her manage that inheritance, someone with property or means of his own, someone from her own social standing. The words were not cruel, just honest, and they struck Cole like physical blows. "Are you ordering me to stay away from her?" "No," Thomas said with a heavy sigh. "I thought about it, but I know my sister. Forbidding her from seeing you would just make her more determined. Besides, you have done nothing wrong, and it would not be fair to punish you for having feelings you cannot control." He straightened up, looking Cole in the eye. "What I am asking is that you do not encourage anything beyond friendship. Clara is young and perhaps a bit naive about certain realities. She sees you as someone who treats her as an equal, and that is admirable. But do not let it go further than that, for both your sakes." "And if Clara wants more than friendship?" Cole asked, then immediately regretted the boldness of the question. To his surprise, Thomas almost smiled. "Then I suppose that would be her decision to make. But I am asking you, man to man, to think carefully about what you could offer her. Could you provide for her the way she deserves? Could you give her the life she has been accustomed to? I am not trying to be cruel, Cole. I am trying to be realistic. Sometimes caring about someone means wanting what is best for them, even if that does not include you." After Thomas left, Cole stood in the barn for a long time, mechanically brushing Scout without really seeing what he was doing. Everything Thomas had said was true. Cole had nothing to offer Clara except his affection and his willingness to work hard. Was that enough? Could it ever be enough? The question haunted him over the following days. He tried to create distance, making excuses when Clara asked him to ride with her, volunteering for jobs that took him away from the main ranch. But Clara was perceptive, and she noticed the change immediately. It was almost a week after his conversation with Thomas when Clara cornered him in the tack room. Cole had been repairing a broken bridle, using the detailed work as a way to keep his mind occupied when she appeared in the doorway. "Are you avoiding me?" she asked without preamble. Cole fumbled with the leather straps. "No, madam, just been busy with work." "Do not lie to me, Cole. You have never lied to me before." She stepped into the small room, closing the door behind her. In the confined space, Cole was overwhelmingly aware of her presence. "Did Thomas say something to you?" There was no point in denying it. "He just reminded me of some facts I already knew, about the differences between us." Clara's eyes flashed with anger, but Cole could tell it was not directed at him. "Let me guess. He told you that I am too good for you, that you are just a ranch hand and I need someone of my own social standing." He was not unkind about it, and he was not wrong. Was he not? Clara moved closer, and Cole found himself backing up until he hit the wall. She planted her hands on either side of him, effectively trapping him. "Tell me something, Cole Brennan. When you look at me, do you see a lady who needs to be protected and married off to some wealthy rancher's son? Or do you see Clara, a woman who can think for herself and make her own choices?" Cole swallowed hard. "I see Clara. I have only ever seen Clara." "Then why are you letting my brother dictate what happens between us? I am not a child, and I am not property to be managed. If I want to spend time with you, if I want." She trailed off, color rising in her cheeks, but her gaze remained steady. "Thomas does not get to decide that for me. Clara, you do not understand what you are asking. Your brother is right. I have nothing. I live in a bunkhouse with a dozen other men. I own one horse and maybe $50 in saved wages. I cannot give you the life you deserve. And what life do I deserve, in your opinion? Should I marry some wealthy man who sees me as nothing more than a prize to be won? Someone who will pat me on the head and tell me not to worry about business matters? Or should I be with someone who sees me as an equal, who treats me with respect, who makes me feel more alive than I have felt in 4 years?" Her words hung in the air between them, charged with emotion. Cole's heart was pounding so hard he thought she must be able to hear it. "I am not good enough for you," he said, the words barely above a whisper. "But I swear to you, Clara, I will prove that I can be. I do not know how yet, but I will find a way. I will work harder, save more, do whatever it takes. Because you are right about one thing. When I am with you, nothing else matters. Not class or money or what anyone else thinks. You are all I see." Clara's stern expression softened into something tender. "You fool," she said gently. "You are already good enough. You always have been. You just need to believe it." Then she kissed him. It was soft and sweet and far too brief, but in that moment, Cole's entire world shifted on its axis. When she pulled back, her eyes were shining. "I do not care what my brother says, or what society thinks, or what the proper thing is supposed to be. I care about you, Cole. And I think you care about me too." "I do," Cole admitted, abandoning all pretense. "More than I should, more than is smart or sensible." "Then let us both be foolish together." She took his hand, lacing her fingers through his. "We do not have to figure everything out right now. We do not have to announce it to the world or make grand plans. But please, do not shut me out. Do not avoid me. Let us just see where this goes." Cole knew he should be the sensible one, should insist on propriety and proper social boundaries. But with Clara looking at him like that, with the warmth of her hand in his and the memory of that kiss still tingling on his lips, he could not bring himself to push her away. "All right," he said, "but we have to be careful. If your brother thinks I am taking advantage of you, I will be looking for a new job at best. Thomas will come around eventually. He just needs time to see what I already know." "And what is that?" Clara smiled, her thumb tracing gentle circles on the back of his hand. "That sometimes the right choice is not the expected one." They managed to keep their growing relationship quiet for the next few weeks, stealing moments together when they could. Clara would find excuses to be where Cole was working, bringing him water or asking questions about what he was doing. On the occasions when they could ride out together, they would find secluded spots to talk and share stolen kisses. It was exhilarating and terrifying in equal measure. Cole threw himself into his work with renewed determination. If he was going to be worthy of Clara, he needed to prove himself, needed to show Thomas and everyone else that he was more than just another drifting cowboy. He started staying up late, reading books on ranch management that he borrowed from the small collection in the bunkhouse. He paid closer attention during his work, learning not just how to do tasks but why they were done certain ways, understanding the bigger picture of ranch operations. Samuel, the foreman, noticed his increased dedication. "You angling for my job, Brennan?" he asked one day with a grin. "No, sir. Just trying to be better at the one I have." "Well, you are doing fine work. Thomas mentioned the other day that you have the makings of a top hand, maybe even foreman material in a few years if you stick around." The praise meant more to Cole than Samuel could know. Every bit of recognition, every demonstration of his competence, felt like a step toward being the man Clara deserved. But keeping secrets on a ranch where everyone lived and worked in close quarters was nearly impossible. Cole should have known it was only a matter of time before someone noticed. The revelation came in early August, about 2 months after Clara's arrival. Cole and Clara had ridden out to check on some cattle in the northern section of the property. They had dismounted in a grove of aspen trees, and Cole had just pulled Clara into his arms for a kiss when they heard the sound of approaching hoofbeats. They sprang apart, but not quickly enough. Jack rode into the clearing and pulled up short, his eyes widening as he took in the scene. "Well, well," he said slowly, "this is interesting." "Jack, it is not what you think," Cole started, then stopped, realizing how ridiculous that sounded given that it was exactly what it looked like. Really? Because it looks like you are courting the boss's sister, which is something I am pretty sure the boss would have strong opinions about. Jack looked between them, his expression unreadable. How long has this been going on? That is none of your business, Clara said, her chin lifting defiantly. Maybe not, Miss Boyd, but it becomes my business if it affects the ranch. Thomas has a right to know what is happening under his nose. Cole stepped forward, keeping his voice calm. Jack, I am asking you as a friend, please do not say anything. Not yet. Give us time to tell Thomas ourselves the right way. Jack studied him for a long moment. You are playing a dangerous game, Cole. I like you and I respect you, but this is not going to end well. That is for us to determine, Clara said firmly. And I would remind you that, despite being a woman, I do have some say in the running of this ranch. My father left it to both Thomas and me, even if my brother sometimes forgets that. I am not trying to cause trouble, Miss Boyd, but Cole is risking his job and his reputation for this. I hope you understand that. After Jack rode off, his promise to keep quiet secured but tenuous, Cole and Clara looked at each other with new understanding. Their secret was fragile, and it was only a matter of time before it came out. We should tell Thomas, Cole said, before someone else does. Clara nodded slowly. You are right. I hate that you are right, but you are. If Thomas hears about this from someone else, it will be much worse. They decided to wait until after supper that evening, when Thomas typically retired to his study to go over the ranch books. Clara would ask to speak with him privately, and Cole would be there to face the consequences with her. The hours until then dragged by with agonizing slowness. Cole could barely focus on his work, his stomach churning with anxiety about the coming confrontation. When the time finally came, Cole washed up and changed into his good shirt, his hands trembling slightly as he buttoned it. He met Clara on the front porch of the ranch house, and she squeezed his hand reassuringly before they went inside. Thomas was indeed in his study, bent over a ledger. He looked up in surprise when both of them entered. Clara, Cole, this is unexpected. Is something wrong? Clara took a deep breath. Thomas, we need to talk to you about something important. Thomas set down his pen, his expression growing wary as he took in their serious faces and the way Clara stood close to Cole. Go on. Cole and I have been spending time together, a lot of time, and we have developed feelings for each other. Romantic feelings. Clara's voice was steady despite the nervousness Cole could sense in her. I know this is not what you wanted or expected, but it is the truth, and we wanted you to hear it from us. The silence that followed felt endless. Thomas looked at Cole with an expression that was difficult to read. Anger, certainly, but also something that might have been resignation or even sadness. How long? Thomas finally asked. About 6 weeks, Cole admitted. Sir, I know what you said to me before, and I know this is not ideal, but I promise you my intentions are honorable. Your intentions. Thomas stood up and Cole braced himself. But instead of exploding with anger, Thomas just looked tired. Cole, I like you. You are a good worker and a decent man. But this, he gestured between them, this is complicated in ways you may not fully understand. We understand more than you think, Clara said. Thomas, I know you mean well, but you cannot control who I care about. I am not asking for your permission. I am simply informing you out of respect and love for you. Clara, you are 22 years old. You have your whole life ahead of you. Cole is 23 and working as a ranch hand. What kind of future can he offer you? The kind I want, Clara said firmly. The kind where I am treated as an equal partner, where my thoughts and opinions matter, where I am not just an ornament or a prize. Cole sees me, really sees me in a way no one else ever has. Thomas turned his attention to Cole. And what do you see when you look at my sister? Do you see the woman, or do you see the ranch she will inherit? The question hit Cole like a slap, but he met Thomas's gaze steadily. I see the woman who makes me want to be better than I am. I see someone intelligent and strong and brave enough to defy convention for what she believes in. The ranch has nothing to do with it. I would feel the same way if she had nothing to her name. Pretty words. But words do not pay bills or put food on the table. If you truly care about Clara, you would want what is best for her, and that is not a life of struggle and uncertainty. Maybe I should have a say in what is best for me, Clara interjected. I am not a child, Thomas. And while I appreciate your concern, I am fully capable of making my own decisions about my own life, even when those decisions are short-sighted and foolish. Is it foolish to choose genuine affection over convenient arrangement? I could marry any number of wealthy ranchers' sons, men with property and means, and be miserable for the rest of my life. Or I could be with someone who makes me happy, someone I actually love. The word love hung in the air, and Cole felt his heart skip. Clara had not said it to him directly before, had not put that label on what they felt. But hearing her say it now in front of her brother made it real in a way it had not been before. Thomas sank back into his chair, suddenly looking older than his 30 years. You love him. I do. And you, Thomas looked at Cole. Do you love my sister? Cole's throat felt tight, but he managed to say, yes, sir, I do, more than I have words to explain. Thomas was quiet for a long moment, his fingers drumming on the desk. Finally, he sighed deeply. I cannot stop you. You are both adults, and as Clara has pointed out, she has every right to make her own choices. But I am not going to make this easy, and I am certainly not going to bless it. Cole, you will continue with your regular duties, nothing more, nothing less. You will not receive special treatment because of this. And Clara, I expect you to think very carefully about what you are doing. Love is one thing, but building a life together requires more than just feelings. It was not approval, but it was not outright forbiddance either. Clara moved to hug her brother, but he held up a hand to stop her. I need time to think about this. Both of you, please leave me alone for now. As they left the study, Cole felt a mixture of relief and apprehension. The secret was out, but the battle was far from over. In the hallway, Clara turned to him, tears glistening in her eyes. Thank you for standing with me in there. I know that was not easy. It was the right thing to do. We could not keep hiding forever. Cole wanted to pull her into his arms, but was aware they were still in the house where any servant might see. What happens now? Now we prove to Thomas that this is real and lasting. We show him that what we have is worth fighting for. She reached out and squeezed his hand. Go back to the bunkhouse. I will see you tomorrow. Cole walked back across the ranch yard with his head spinning. Everything had changed in the space of one conversation, and yet nothing had changed at all. He still had the same job, the same responsibilities, the same lack of prospects. The only difference was that now everyone would know about him and Clara, and judgment would follow. He was right about that. Word spread through the ranch with the speed of wildfire. By the next morning, every hand knew that Cole Brennan was involved with Clara Boyd, and opinions were divided. Some men were happy for him, seeing it as a romantic underdog story. Others were skeptical, predicting it would end badly for everyone involved. A few were openly hostile, suggesting Cole was taking advantage or reaching above his station. Cole endured the comments and speculative looks with as much grace as he could muster, throwing himself into his work and trying to ignore the whispers. What bothered him more than the gossip was Thomas's cold demeanor. The ranch owner was not cruel or unfair, but his previous friendliness had evaporated. He gave Cole orders through Samuel rather than directly, and when they did interact, Thomas's tone was strictly professional. Clara, for her part, refused to be cowed by her brother's disapproval or the ranch gossip. She continued to involve herself in ranch operations, continued to seek out Cole's company when appropriate, and held her head high in the face of speculation. Cole admired her courage even as he worried about the price she might pay for her defiance. Things came to a head a week after their revelation to Thomas. A neighboring rancher, Martin Whitmore, came to visit with his son, Edward. Edward was about Clara's age, well-dressed and well-spoken, with the kind of easy confidence that came from growing up with money and position. It did not take Cole long to realize that this visit was orchestrated by Thomas, an attempt to present Clara with what he considered a more suitable match. Cole watched from a distance as Thomas introduced Clara to Edward on the front porch, saw the way Edward's face lit up at the sight of her. He felt a sick twist in his stomach, a combination of jealousy and fear that maybe Clara would realize Edward could offer her everything Cole could not. That evening, Clara came to find Cole in the barn where he was grooming horses. Her face was flushed with anger. "Did you see what my brother did today? Parading Edward Whitmore in front of me like I am a prize mare he is trying to breed. It was humiliating." "Edward seems like a good match," Cole said carefully, not meeting her eyes. "He is educated, wealthy, from a good family." Clara grabbed his arm, forcing him to look at her. "Stop that. Stop trying to push me away by suggesting I would be better off with someone else. I do not care how good a match Edward Whitmore is on paper. He is not you, Clara. Maybe your brother has a point. What can I really offer you? A room in a boarding house when we get married, assuming I could even afford to get married. Years of scraping by while I try to save enough to buy a small piece of land. You deserve better than that. What I deserve is to make my own choices about my own happiness." Clara's voice was fierce. "I did not fall in love with your financial prospects, Cole. I fell in love with you. Your kindness, your integrity, your strength, the way you see the world, those things do not have a price tag. Love is not enough to live on. Maybe not, but it is a good place to start." She moved closer, taking both of his hands in hers. "I know you are worried. I know this situation is not ideal, but we will figure it out, together. Unless you do not want to anymore, unless you are having second thoughts." Cole looked into her gray eyes and saw the vulnerability there, the fear that he might give up on them. It galvanized something in him, swept away his doubts and insecurities, at least for the moment. "I am not having second thoughts about you. Never about you. I am just afraid I will let you down, that I will not be able to give you the life you could have with someone like Edward Whitmore." "Then let me worry about that. All I am asking is that you trust me, trust us, and keep trying. Can you do that?" "Yes," Cole said, and knew it was a promise he would do everything in his power to keep. They were interrupted by the sound of boots on the barn floor. Thomas appeared, his face dark with anger. "Clara, I need you to come back to the house. Edward and his father are staying for supper, and it would be rude for you not to be present." "I do not care if it is rude," Clara said, not letting go of Cole's hands. "I am not interested in Edward Whitmore, and you cannot force me to pretend otherwise. I am not trying to force you to do anything. I am simply asking you to show common courtesy to our guests. Is that too much to ask?" "It is when I know your real motive is to separate me from Cole and push me towards someone you deem more appropriate." Thomas's jaw clenched. "Cole, you are dismissed. Go about your duties elsewhere." "No," Clara said firmly. "If you want to talk about this, we will talk about it together. I am tired of you treating Cole like he is invisible or irrelevant when it is convenient for you." "Clara, please," Cole said quietly. "I should go. This is between you and your brother." "It is not, though. Do you not see? Thomas needs to understand that we are a unit now. What affects one of us affects both of us." Thomas looked between them, his expression a mixture of frustration and something that might have been hurt. "Fine. You want to do this here and now, let us do this. Cole, I am going to ask you a direct question, and I want an honest answer. Do you intend to marry my sister?" The question caught Cole off guard, but he did not hesitate. "If she will have me, yes, sir. I do." "And how exactly do you plan to support her? Where will you live? What will you do when children come along? Have you thought about any of that, or are you just caught up in the romance of the situation?" "I have thought about all of it, sir. I am not going to pretend I have all the answers, but I am working on it. I have been saving every penny I can. I have been learning everything I can about ranch management, thinking maybe someday I could be a foreman or manage someone else's property. It is not a quick path or an easy one, but I am willing to work as hard as it takes. A foreman's salary is not much better than a regular hand's." "Do you really think that is enough?" "Thomas, stop," Clara interjected. "You are measuring everything by money and position when those are not the things that matter most. Yes, we will need to be practical and figure out how to make a living, but we will do it together. I am not some helpless debutante who needs to be coddled and provided for. I can work too, I can contribute." "Doing what, exactly? You spent 4 years learning to be a lady, not a laborer." "I also learned accounting and business management. Skills that could be useful to any ranch, including this one if you would stop being so stubborn and let me help." Thomas looked at his sister with a pained expression. "I am not trying to control you, Clara. I am trying to protect you. Our parents made me promise to look after you, and I have been trying to honor that promise. But you make it very difficult when you insist on making choices that will only lead to hardship. Or maybe they will lead to happiness. Maybe I would rather have a modest life with someone I love than a comfortable life with someone I do not." Clara's voice softened. "Thomas, I know you are trying to look out for me. I know you think you are doing the right thing, but I am asking you to trust me. Trust that I know what I want and what I need." Thomas was silent for a long moment, his shoulders sagging. When he finally spoke, his voice was heavy with resignation. "I do not know how to stop worrying about you, Clara. You are my baby sister. It is my job to worry. You can worry without trying to control. You can care without trying to dictate." Clara moved forward and took her brother's hand. "I am not asking for your approval, Thomas, but I would like your understanding. Cole is a good man and he makes me happy. Cannot that be enough?" "No," Thomas said bluntly. "It is not enough, but I am beginning to realize I do not have a choice in the matter." He turned to Cole. "You say you want to marry my sister. If that is true, then you are going to have to prove you can provide for her properly. I am not going to just hand her over to a life of poverty because you love each other. I would never ask you to do that, sir. All I am asking is for a chance to prove myself." Thomas studied him for a long moment, then seemed to come to some kind of decision. "All right. Here is what I am willing to offer. I am expanding the ranch's horse breeding operation. I need someone to manage it, someone who knows horses and is willing to learn the business side of things. The position comes with a small house on the property, about a mile from the main ranch, and a salary that is significantly better than what you make now. Not wealthy by any means, but enough to support a small family if you are careful." Cole felt his heart pounding. "You are offering me a foreman position. I am offering you a chance to prove you are serious about this. The job is not easy. You would be responsible for selecting breeding stock, training young horses, managing sales, keeping detailed records. You would report directly to me, and I will expect nothing less than excellence. But if you do the job well, it would put you in a position to eventually support a wife and family." "Thomas, that is generous," Clara said, surprise evident in her voice. "It is practical," Thomas corrected. If you two are determined to be together, then I would rather it happen in a way where you have some financial security. This way Cole can prove himself without Clara having to sacrifice everything. He looked at Cole. What do you say? Are you willing to take this on? Yes, sir. Absolutely. Thank you. Do not thank me yet. This is not charity. I expect you to earn every penny, and if you fail, you are out. I will not carry someone just because he is involved with my sister. I understand. I will not let you down. Thomas nodded curtly. You start next week. That gives you time to transition your current duties. Samuel will go over the details with you. He turned to leave, then paused. And Cole, for what it is worth, I hope you succeed. I really do. Because if Clara is going to be stubborn about this, I would prefer you at least be able to take care of her properly. After Thomas left, Clara threw her arms around Cole, laughing with joy and relief. Did that really just happen? Did my brother just give you a promotion and his grudging blessing? Cole held her tight, still processing what had just occurred. I think he did. I cannot believe it. This changes everything. It is a start, a real start. Clara pulled back to look at him, her eyes shining. You are going to be brilliant at this, I know it. I hope you are right. The thought of managing the breeding operation is exciting, but it is also terrifying. There is so much I do not know. Then we will learn together. I meant what I said about wanting to be involved in the ranch. If Thomas is giving us this chance, I want to help make it succeed. Over the next week, Cole felt like he was living in a dream. Samuel sat down with him and went over the responsibilities of the new position, showing him the small house that would be his if he took the job. It was a simple structure, just 3 rooms and a porch, but it had been recently maintained and was clean and sturdy. To Cole, who had been living in the bunkhouse for 3 years, it looked like a palace. It needs some work, Samuel admitted. Last fellow who lived here was old and did not keep up with things toward the end. But it is solid, and with some effort, you could make it real nice. Cole walked through the rooms, already imagining how they could be furnished, how Clara might arrange things. There was a main room that served as both kitchen and sitting area, with a stone fireplace and a big window looking out over the pastures. The bedroom was small but adequate, and there was a third tiny room that could serve as an office or eventually a nursery. The thought made Cole's heart race. I can start fixing it up on my own time, Cole said. Make it presentable. Samuel grinned. Already thinking about settling down, are you? Good. About time someone brought some youth and energy to this operation. The horse program has been neglected for too long. Thomas is hoping you can make something of it. Cole threw himself into learning everything he could. He spent his evenings reading about horse bloodlines and breeding programs, studying the records of the horses Thomas already owned, making notes and plans. True to her word, Clara joined him whenever she could, her education proving valuable as she helped organize the information and spot patterns in the data that Cole might have missed. They made a good team, complementing each other's strengths. Cole knew horses instinctively, could spot good conformation and temperament, but Clara understood the business side, could project costs and potential profits, could create systems for tracking and management. Working together, they developed a comprehensive plan for the breeding operation that impressed even Thomas when they presented it to him. This is thorough work, Thomas admitted, flipping through the pages of notes and projections Clara had carefully written out. You have clearly put thought into this. We both have, Clara said, emphasizing the word we. Cole knows horses better than anyone I have ever met, and I have a head for numbers and organization. Together, we make a strong team. Thomas looked at his sister, and Cole saw something shift in his expression. Maybe it was acceptance, or maybe just resignation, but some of the tension seemed to ease. I can see that. All right, Cole, you have the job officially. I will have the contracts drawn up, and you can move into the house at the end of the month." The next few weeks were a whirlwind of activity. Cole continued his regular duties during the day while spending his evenings and any spare time working on the house. Several of the other ranch hands volunteered to help, their way of showing support for what many now saw as an unlikely but genuine love match. Together they repaired the porch railing, patched holes in the roof, whitewashed the walls, and replaced a cracked window pane. Clara enlisted the help of the ranch cook to make curtains for the windows, and somehow produced a beautiful quilt for the bed, claiming she had made it during her time in Boston. She also brought over a few pieces of furniture from the main house, things she said were sitting unused in storage, but that Cole suspected Thomas had allowed her to take specifically for this purpose. By the time Cole officially moved in at the beginning of September, the little house had been transformed. It was simple but comfortable, a real home. On his first night there, Cole sat on the porch watching the sunset paint the sky in shades of orange and pink, and felt overwhelming gratitude for how far he had come. The work of managing the breeding operation proved challenging but rewarding. Thomas had given him a budget to acquire new breeding stock, and Cole spent long hours evaluating horses at auctions and neighboring ranches, looking for animals with the right combination of temperament, conformation, and bloodlines. He made some mistakes early on, bought one mare who turned out to have a chronic lameness issue, but he learned from each experience. Clara was his constant companion and assistant, helping with the record keeping and often accompanying him on trips to look at horses. Thomas seemed to accept their partnership, though he still maintained a certain distance. Cole suspected the ranch owner was waiting to see if they would succeed or fail, reserving final judgment. As fall deepened into early winter, Cole realized he had never been happier. He loved his work, loved the challenge of building something from the ground up. He loved coming home each evening to the little house, often finding Clara there waiting for him with supper prepared. They were not officially married yet, but they were building a life together piece by piece. One evening in late October, as they sat by the fireplace reviewing breeding schedules for the spring, Clara suddenly went quiet. Cole looked up from his notes to find her watching him with an intense expression. "What is it?" he asked. "I was just thinking about how much has changed in the last few months. When I got off that stagecoach in June, I had no idea my life was about to transform completely." Cole set aside his papers and moved to sit beside her on the small sofa. "Do you have any regrets?" "Not a single one. Do you?" "Only that it took me so long to work up the courage to really talk to you. I wasted weeks trying to keep my distance when I should have been honest about my feelings from the start." Clara leaned her head on his shoulder. "We found our way to each other eventually. That is what matters." She was quiet for a moment, then added, "Cole, I think we should get married." Cole's heart skipped. "Are you proposing to me, Miss Boyd?" "Maybe I am. Is that so scandalous?" She lifted her head to look at him, a playful smile on her lips that quickly turned more serious. "We have been courting for 4 months now. We work together, we spend almost every day together, we have built this life together. The only thing missing is making it official. What about your brother? He might accept that we are together, but I am not sure he is ready for us to marry." "Thomas has had months to get used to the idea. And besides, I do not need his permission. I am 22 years old, and I know what I want." She took both of his hands in hers. "I want you, Cole Brennan. I want to wake up next to you every morning and fall asleep beside you every night. I want to build this breeding program into something amazing and maybe someday buy our own land and start our own ranch. I want to have children with you and grow old with you and spend the rest of my life as your partner in every way. So yes, I am proposing. Will you marry me?" Cole felt his throat tighten with emotion. "You are incredible, do you know that? You are brave and smart, and you make me want to be better every single day. Of course I will marry you. Nothing would make me happier." Clara's face lit up with pure joy, and she kissed him with a passion that made his head spin. When they finally pulled apart, both breathless, Cole said, "I should have been the one to propose. I should have done something romantic, gotten down on one knee." "You can do that if you want, but my answer will be the same either way." Cole laughed and slid off the sofa to kneel in front of her, taking her hands again. "Clara Boyd, you are the most extraordinary woman I have ever known. You have turned my entire world upside down in the best possible way. I do not have much to offer you except my love and my promise to work every day to make you happy and give you the life you deserve. Will you do me the incredible honor of becoming my wife?" "Yes," Clara said, tears streaming down her face. "Yes, absolutely yes." They decided to talk to Thomas the next day. Cole was nervous about the conversation, but Clara was confident her brother would accept their decision. She was right, though Thomas's response was more complicated than simple acceptance. "You want to get married," Thomas said, leaning back in his desk chair and studying them both. "When?" "As soon as possible," Clara said. "There is no reason to wait." "I can think of several reasons. You have only been courting for a few months. People will talk." "People are already talking," Clara pointed out. "They have been since the day Cole and I started spending time together. I do not care what they say." Thomas sighed. "No, you never have. You get that from our mother. She never cared much for social conventions either." He was quiet for a moment, his fingers drumming on the desk. "If I were to give my blessing to this marriage, and I am not saying I am, but if I were, there would be conditions." "What kind of conditions?" Cole asked warily. "First, you would need to prove the breeding operation is viable. I have given you almost 4 months. Show me a solid plan and evidence that it is working before I will agree to you marrying my sister. Second, I want a proper wedding. Not some rushed affair at the courthouse, but a real ceremony with family and friends. Clara deserves that much." Clara opened her mouth to argue, but Cole squeezed her hand gently. "Those seem like fair conditions, sir. We can wait a few more months if it means having your genuine support rather than your grudging tolerance." Thomas looked surprised and perhaps a bit pleased by Cole's response. "You have matured a lot in the last few months, Cole. I can see why Clara cares for you." "So you will give us your blessing?" Clara asked hopefully. "If Cole can show me by spring that the breeding program is sustainable and profitable, then yes, I will not only give you my blessing but help arrange and pay for a proper wedding." "How does that sound?" Clara looked at Cole, who nodded. "That sounds more than fair. Thank you, Thomas." After they left the study, Clara turned to Cole with a mixture of frustration and fondness. "You do realize you just agreed to wait months to marry me?" "I agreed to prove to your brother that I can provide for you properly. There is a difference, and honestly, Clara, I think he is right. We have plenty of time. What is a few more months when we have the rest of our lives ahead of us?" Clara wrapped her arms around his waist, resting her head against his chest. "When did you become so wise?" "Probably around the same time a beautiful, intelligent woman decided I was worth taking a chance on. Winter in northern Idaho was harsh, and the work of maintaining the ranch and the growing horse breeding program was constant. But Cole thrived on the challenge. He and Clara worked side by side, caring for the horses, planning for spring breeding, and keeping meticulous records of everything they did. By the time spring arrived, they had assembled a small but high-quality herd of breeding stock and had already received inquiries from several buyers interested in purchasing foals when they were weaned. In April, Cole presented Thomas with a comprehensive report on the breeding operation's first year. The numbers were promising, showing not just viability but genuine potential for growth. Thomas studied the documents for a long time before looking up with something that might have been pride in his eyes. "This is excellent work, Cole, both of you. You have exceeded my expectations." "Does that mean?" Clara started hopefully. "It means I am a man of my word. If you two still want to get married, you have my blessing and my support." Thomas stood and extended his hand to Cole, who shook it firmly. "Welcome to the family, Cole, officially this time." The wedding was planned for early June, almost exactly a year after Clara had first arrived in Wallace. True to his word, Thomas spared no expense, arranging for a ceremony at the small church in town, followed by a reception at the ranch. Invitations went out to neighboring ranchers, business associates, friends from town, and of course all the ranch hands who had become Cole's extended family. The weeks leading up to the wedding were a blur of preparations. Clara worked with the ranch cook and several women from town to plan the reception meal. Cole and the other ranch hands built a large pavilion in the ranch yard where tables could be set up for the celebration. Thomas even brought in a small group of musicians from a town 50 miles away to provide music for dancing. On the morning of the wedding, Cole stood in front of the cracked mirror in the bunkhouse, fumbling with his tie. He had bought a new suit for the occasion, the first suit he had ever owned, and he felt both proud and slightly ridiculous in it. Jack helped him get the tie straight and clapped him on the shoulder. "Never thought I would see the day when Cole Brennan got married, especially not to the boss's sister. You are one lucky man." "Do not I know it," Cole said, his stomach fluttering with nerves and excitement. The church was packed when Cole arrived. It seemed like half of Wallace had turned out for the wedding, curious to see the ranch hand marry into one of the most prominent families in the region. Cole took his place at the front of the church next to the minister, Samuel standing beside him as his best man. His hands were shaking. Then the music started, and Clara appeared at the back of the church on Thomas's arm, and everything else faded away. She wore a simple but elegant white dress, her dark hair swept up and adorned with small white flowers. She was the most beautiful thing Cole had ever seen, and he had to blink back tears as she walked toward him. Thomas placed Clara's hand in Cole's, and Cole saw that the ranch owner's eyes were also damp. "Take care of her," Thomas whispered before stepping back. "I will, I promise." The ceremony itself passed in a blur. Cole said his vows in a voice that shook with emotion, promising to love and cherish Clara for the rest of his life. Clara's voice was stronger but equally emotional as she made the same promises to him. When the minister finally pronounced them husband and wife, Cole kissed Clara with all the love and gratitude in his heart, and the church erupted in applause and cheers. The reception at the ranch was a joyous celebration. Long tables groaned under the weight of food. There was roasted beef and chicken, potatoes and vegetables from the ranch garden, fresh bread, pies, and cakes. The musicians played lively tunes, and people danced in the pavilion as the sun began to set. Cole danced with Clara, holding her close and marveling at the fact that she was now his wife. "Happy?" Clara asked, her eyes sparkling. "Happier than I ever imagined possible. You, deliriously so. Although I must admit I am looking forward to when we can escape and have some time alone." Cole grinned. "Not much longer now. Although your brother might have something to say about us leaving our own wedding reception early." As if summoned by his words, Thomas appeared beside them. "May I cut in and dance with my sister, or do I have to call her Mrs. Brennan now?" Clara laughed and moved into her brother's arms as Cole stepped back. He watched them dance, saw Thomas say something that made Clara hug him tightly, both of them emotional. Whatever reservations Thomas had seemed to have finally dissolved, replaced by genuine affection for the man his sister had chosen. Later, as the party was winding down and the sun had fully set, Cole and Clara finally managed to slip away to the little house that was now officially theirs. Someone, probably some of the ranch hands, had decorated it with flowers and ribbons. Inside, the lamps were already lit, casting a warm glow over the simple rooms that had become their home. "Alone at last," Clara said with a happy sigh, kicking off her shoes. As much as I enjoyed the celebration, I was starting to think we would never get a moment to ourselves. Cole pulled her into his arms, holding her close and breathing in the scent of her hair. "I cannot believe you are actually my wife, Mrs. Cole Brennan. It sounds almost too good to be true." "Believe it, because I am not going anywhere. You are stuck with me now. Best fate I could imagine." They stood there for a long moment, just holding each other, before Clara pulled back slightly and looked up at him with a mischievous smile. "So, husband of mine, what are your plans for our wedding night?" Cole felt his face heat but grinned back at her. "I think I can come up with something." He swept her into his arms, making her laugh with delight, and carried her into the bedroom, kicking the door closed behind them. Whatever challenges the future might bring, they would face them together, as partners and equals, just as they had always been. The years that followed were full of hard work, but also deep contentment. The horse breeding operation flourished under Cole and Clara's management, gaining a reputation throughout Idaho and neighboring territories for producing quality stock. What had started as a small program grew into one of the most successful aspects of the Silver Creek Ranch operation. Cole proved to be not just a capable manager, but an innovator, developing training techniques that produced horses known for their gentle temperament and reliability. Clara's business acumen meant they operated efficiently and profitably, and her meticulous record-keeping allowed them to track bloodlines and make smart breeding decisions that paid off generation after generation. Thomas, who had been skeptical at the beginning, became one of their biggest supporters. He and Cole developed a genuine friendship based on mutual respect. Thomas even began consulting Cole on other aspects of the ranch management, recognizing his brother-in-law's natural talent for the work. 2 years after their wedding, Clara gave birth to their first child, a son they named James Thomas Brennan. Cole held his son for the first time with tears streaming down his face, overwhelmed by love and responsibility. Clara, exhausted but radiant, smiled at her husband's reaction. "You are going to be a wonderful father," she said. "I am going to try. He deserves the best. He has the best. He has you." James was followed 2 years later by a daughter, Sarah, and then 3 years after that by another son, Michael. The little house that had once seemed spacious began to feel cramped with a growing family, but Cole and Clara would not have traded it for anything. Their home was filled with love and laughter, with the sounds of children playing and horses neighing in the nearby paddocks. Cole never forgot where he had come from or how far he had traveled. From a drifting ranch hand with nothing to his name to a successful horse breeder with a wife he adored and 3 healthy children, his life had transformed in ways he never could have imagined that day he first saw Clara step off the stagecoach. But it was not just luck or chance. It was hard work, determination, and the unwavering support of a woman who had seen his potential before he fully saw it himself. Clara had believed in him when no one else did, had fought for him against convention and expectation, and had built a life with him through partnership and love. On their 10th wedding anniversary, Cole and Clara took a rare day away from work and children, riding out to the same spot where they had shared their first kiss all those years ago. The waterfall still cascaded into its pool, The aspen trees still whispered in the breeze, and the wildflowers still bloomed in carpets of color. "You ever regret it?" Cole asked as they sat side by side on a blanket, watching the water. "Choosing me over an easier life?" Clara turned to look at him with surprise and fondness. "Not for a single second. Do you regret winning the heart of the most incredible woman in Idaho? Not a chance." "Montana would be more accurate now," Clara teased. "The territory had changed while they were living their lives. And I did not need winning. You just needed to realize you were already good enough." Cole pulled her close, pressing a kiss to the top of her head. "I am glad you were patient with me while I figured that out. It was worth the wait." They sat in comfortable silence, listening to the sounds of the forest around them. After all these years, Cole still sometimes had to pinch himself to believe this was his life. The scared, defensive ranch hand who thought he would never amount to anything had become a successful businessman, loving husband, and devoted father. "What are you thinking about?" Clara asked, tilting her head to look up at him. "About how lucky I am. About how you changed everything for me. We changed things together. That is what partnership means." And that, Cole reflected, was the real truth of their story. It was not about him proving himself worthy of her or her lowering her standards to accept him. It was about two people recognizing something valuable in each other and choosing to build a life together despite the obstacles in their way. It was about mutual respect and shared dreams, and the kind of love that made everything else seem insignificant by comparison. By the time Thomas passed away peacefully in his sleep at the age of 52, he had long since made peace with Clara's choice. His will divided the ranch equally between Clara and Cole, acknowledging that they had been true partners in its success for over a decade. The ranch hands who had once questioned whether a cowboy was good enough for the boss's sister had seen the proof in the thriving operation and strong family Cole and Clara had built. Cole and Clara ran the ranch together for many more years, eventually passing it on to their own children when they were ready. James proved to have his father's way with horses, Sarah inherited her mother's business sense, and Michael showed talent for both. Together, the three siblings continued to grow the Silver Creek Ranch into one of the most respected operations in Montana. On a warm summer evening when Cole and Clara were both in their 60s, they sat on the porch of the main ranch house, watching their grandchildren play in the yard. The sun was setting in a blaze of orange and gold, painting the mountains in shades of purple and pink. Cole reached over and took Clara's hand, their fingers intertwining with the ease of long practice. "You remember the day we met?" Clara asked, her voice softer now with age but still carrying that same warmth that had captured his heart decades ago. "Like it was yesterday. You stepped off that stagecoach looking like you had just descended from heaven, and I dropped those grain sacks right in the middle of the yard." Clara laughed. "I remember thinking what a kind face you had, and how nervous you seemed when you helped with my trunks. I was terrified. You were so far out of my league I could barely string two words together. Yet here we are, 50 years later, still together." Cole squeezed her hand gently. "Best decision I ever made was working up the courage to talk to you. Second best was accepting your challenge to prove I was good enough. You were always good enough, Cole. You just needed to believe it. You made me believe it. You saw something in me that I could not see in myself." They sat in comfortable silence, watching as the sky darkened and stars began to appear. Their life together had not always been easy. There had been hard years, droughts and market crashes, illness and loss. But through it all, they had faced every challenge together, their love and partnership only growing stronger with time. The ranch they had built together would continue long after they were gone, passed down through generations of Brennans who would inherit not just land and livestock, but the legacy of two people who refused to let society's expectations dictate their happiness. Cole had proven himself worthy not through grand gestures or dramatic changes, but through steady dedication, honest work, and unwavering love. As the first stars appeared in the darkening sky, Cole leaned over and kissed his wife gently. "I love you, Clara Brennan. More today than yesterday, but not as much as tomorrow." Clara smiled, the same radiant smile that had captivated him 50 years ago. "I love you too, Cole, today, tomorrow, and always." And there, on the porch of the ranch they had built together, surrounded by the evidence of a life well lived and love well spent, Cole Brennan felt a deep and abiding contentment. He had started with nothing but determination and hope, and he had gained everything that truly mattered. He had proven himself not to Clara, who had never needed proof, but to himself. And in doing so, he had discovered that being good enough was not about wealth or status or meeting someone else's arbitrary standards. It was about being the best version of himself, about working hard for what he believed in, and about having the courage to accept love when it was offered. The ranch hand had won the owner's sister's heart not through tricks or grand gestures, but through being genuinely, completely himself. And in the end, that had been more than good enough. It had been everything.